I'm Hans Devines, and trust me, it is an honor to be your host today for this afternoon's proceedings as we commemorate an initiative that will bring us closer to net zero carbon emissions and the Sustainable Development Goal 7, affordable and clean energy. We are here to commemorate today another milestone in our country's history, breaking ground for Trinidad and Tobago's first utility-scale solar project. I think that in itself deserves a round of applause. And obviously, we love the partnership between BP, Shell, and of course the government of Trinidad and Tobago here at the Brechin Castle Solar Site, securing a low-carbon energy future. We thank each and every one of you for attending today's ceremony. And to get us started, I'd like to welcome to the podium a man I have the utmost respect for, Senior Vice President and Country Chair, Shell Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Eugene Okpere. Please put your hands together and welcome him.
Thank you for that very kind welcome, Hans. I didn't pay him, I promise you. Dr. Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, Miss, I hope I get this right, Anya Isabel Donsrelt. Sorry, if I didn't do that, I'll practice that, I promise. EVP Gas and Low Carbon Energy BP, Mr. David Campbell, President BPTT, Dr. Vernon Patu, President of the National Energy, representatives of Ministry of Energy, Energy Industries, and Public Utilities, other distinguished guests, valued colleagues from the project, members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me start with a quote from Steve Jobs. He rightfully said, "Great things in business are never done by one person. They are done by a team of people." So therefore, I think I'll start by saying a really important thank you with these brief remarks by applauding our partnership that made today possible. Partnerships that are taking Trinidad and Tobago forward in realizing the energy transition ambitions. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Ministry of Public Utilities, Ministry of Planning and Development, Ministry of Finance, National Energy, T&Tech, academia, our members of parliament, local communities, and government bodies, and of course, the teams of BP, Shell, and Lightsource BP. Thank you for your vision, determination, and commitment to progress this opportunity that will ultimately benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But just permit me to take a step back for just a minute to the seed that was planted almost 5 years ago in New York when Trinidad and Tobago signed the United Nations Paris Agreement on climate change and committed to tangible action on the energy transition. So much has changed since then. As partners, we've nurtured this commitment through unprecedented times and uncharted territory. And today, we are bearing the first fruit of our collective efforts. I think it's truly a momentous day in this country's history as we literally break ground to mark the start of construction of the country's first ever utility-scale solar project. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a world-class project, the largest to date in the Caribbean that will collectively generate 112 megawatts of solar power on 2 sites, right here at the Brechin Castle in Couva and in Orange Grove. This is enough power to power 42,000 homes. Since the country first made the commitment to the energy transition on the international stage, we've witnessed a fundamental shift from simple awareness to the impact of global change to a very strong imperative to drive and push. And that is pushing us and demanding that we move faster and giving us the imperative that we need to act now. While natural gas will continue to play a key role in providing reliable energy for this country's needs, today is a historical step towards a low-carbon energy future. So as we journey through this energy transition, there are 2 things I would like to emphasize: agility and action. At Shell, we're finding new ways and agile ways to innovatively deploy technology and digitalization to decarbonize our gas value chain. This includes reducing our operational carbon footprint and our source emissions by maximizing operational efficiency, working towards the elimination of venting and flaring in our operations, and of course, investing in this project, which will support the country's renewable energy goals. Our collective partnership has demonstrated agility in nurturing the pioneering project through numerous challenges, including COVID, the international supply chain challenges, and the inflationary pressures we're seeing. I see a wry smile from Minister Young on that. We have had to deal with those, but we're here. And that, I think, is a testament to what we can achieve together as we charge this journey forward. The next one is action. We're already doing a lot of action, but I think we need to intensify our actions. The world is demanding that we act faster, and I would humbly suggest that if we don't continue to respond to that challenge by defining our own pathway, change will be imposed on us. At Shell, we encourage the ongoing collaboration with government towards establishing a carbon framework to evolve the country's energy system. This will help stimulate economic growth through market investments in projects such as this solar project and the government's offshore wind and green hydrogen economy. In turn, this will help Trinidad and Tobago to remain globally carbon competitive for exports, including low-carbon LNG and low-carbon ammonia. Renewable power generation underpins this low-carbon future and will help Trinidad and Tobago's industry in years to come, partnered with gas. We also applaud the government's initiatives in developing a framework for potential carbon capture and storage projects. While Trinidad's absolute CO2 emissions are relatively minor, on a per capita basis, the levels are globally significant. So we congratulate UWI, University of West Indies, and the UTT for embarking on a critical study to identify potential subsurface CO2 storage reservoir, which is necessary in making these carbon capture projects a reality in Trinidad. Shell is therefore very pleased to be partnering with these institutions. So in closing today, I think we should all feel a deep sense of pride. There's more work to be done, but we're making right steps towards achieving that low-carbon future. On a personal note, I'm very proud to be part of this project, and permit me to end with an African saying, which says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, we go together. So together with our stakeholders, we are looking forward to the next phase as we make solar energy a reality in Trinidad and Tobago and provide lower carbon power for our customers. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okpe. He spoke about the collaboration. And one thing that we really should take note of from his entire message as well, other than the end, the fact that we had so many bodies coming together, the fact that we had our academia from Trinidad and Tobago really contributing to this is really a big step, and it really speaks to the future and how this project will benefit the future. Once again, a round of applause to Mr. Okpe and Shell. These companies have recognized that the future needs to be shaped a completely different way. And the next speaker's title speaks to that. Executive Vice President, Gas and Low Carbon Energy, BP. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Anya Isabel Dotson-Rath to the podium. Thank you.
Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, dear David, dear Eugene, Mr. Max Popjewicz, Development Associate Lightsource BP, other distinguished members of staff from the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries and the Ministry of Public Utilities, distinguished local government representatives from the Kuwa Talparo Tapakit Regional Corporation and from the Tunapanua Piako Regional Corporation. I'm very sorry, I'm not a native speaker, but I try to do my very best, ladies and gentlemen. All of our other distinguished guests and project partners, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased, proud and humbled to be here today. Guten Nachmittag, as we would say in Germany. it is very hard to speak after Eugene because he literally stole all my thunder already, but let me give it a try. As I said, it's an honor to join you all today, and it's such a pleasure to be here in this stunningly beautiful country and this very, very beautiful location. Overlooking these, I must admit, astonishing rolling hills, because this is not, let's say, the ideal site for a solar project, but we will certainly make it work, and it will be the best project in the Caribbean, not only the first, but it will be the best, and I think in this distinguished partnership, we will make it happen. For decades, BP has had the privilege to support this country's energy sector. And I think it's fair to say we have been a partner as the energy transitioned from oil, then to gas to petrochemicals in the 80s and 90s, and then to gas for LNG in the 90s and early 20s. And we are now very, very happy and feel privileged to extend this partnership with the government and the communities to put this new energy future, a future which is built on renewables in addition to gas. So it gives me, and we heard the word pride, although it's a deadly sin, but allow me to say it nevertheless. It gives me a sense of pride to break ground on this country's first large-scale solar project. And as an engineer, I always find it quite stimulating to move from planning to actually shovels in the ground. And this is what we will do soon here with construction commencing in a hopefully very short period of time. As Eugene said, the project will serve 42,000 homes in Trinidad and Tobago, and will be absolutely vital for Trinidad and Tobago's decarbonization objectives and the energy transition of the country. And it's also very important to mention, I think, that it will create more value for the country as it frees up more gas for use in country and for export. And we should definitely acknowledge the importance of this. And this is important, not only for the country, for Trinidad and Tobago, but also for the world and also for BP. Our role at BP is to help solve the energy trilemma, and that means providing energy that is secure, affordable, and lower carbon. And I think it's fair to say that last year's events have changed the energy landscape forever. And I think we all learned, and I say this as a German, with 50% of the gas historically coming from Russia, I think we need to ensure that the energy transition is done at highest speed possible, but it has to be done in an orderly way. And this means we need to invest in hydrocarbons today, because our world today is built on hydrocarbons, while at the same time we need to invest in the energy transition. So it's an and discussion and not an or discussion. And I think it's very, very important to emphasize this again. And because of this, and because of the energy crisis we are in, gas from Trinidad and Tobago will be needed for decades to come. And it's very important for me to mention this as a partner to the country, which we have been and had the privilege to be for many, many years. So while we shine light on exciting new projects like this one, and I have a strong renewable background, allow me to say this, so I'm very excited about this, we are, as BP, also clearly at the same time very, very focused on safe and reliable gas operations, on growing our footprint in country, ensuring that the country and the world has the energy needs today and in the future. What is also important when we're talking about the energy transition, and again, Eugene, I'm building on what you said, it's very important to collaborate between industry, between government, between the communities, to ensure that the energy transition is also a just transition. And today's project is a proof of such a great collaboration. we would not be here without the support of the government, the support of the local communities, and our partners, including Shell, of course, and Lightsource PP, and National Energy, and the University of West Indies, and many, many more to mention. So let me again re-emphasize that Trinidad and Tobago remains very important to BP, and we thank the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago for trusting us in developing this project and hopefully many more energy projects to come. So let me close by saying, on behalf of BP, I would like to wholeheartedly again thank you, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy, and the Honorable Martin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, and of course all their teams, which are of vital importance to progress a project like this. And now let me close by saying I'm very much looking forward to coming back and celebrating the safe startup of this project, and I think which will take place in 2 phases, in 24 and in 25, and maybe we can even combine it with carnival season, because unfortunately I missed this year, which is obviously unforgivable, but I'm also only a human being. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dodson-Rath. And we do look forward to having you here for Carnival season, as the 2 partners have. And I'm going to go a little off script here. We have the Honorable Minister of Energy and Energy Industries' favorite band is BP Renegades, and the Prime Minister's favorite one is Shell Invaders. So it's just interesting that we have the 2 of them here and this partnership. So this is a beautiful partnership on so many levels. Now we'd like to welcome to the podium a man that is very hardworking and is really changing the way we see utilities in Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez, Minister of Public Utilities, to bring his remarks. A round of applause as we welcome him.
Thank you very much, Hans. The Honorable Keith, my Cabinet and Parliamentary colleague, the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, His Excellency Mr. Fernando Alvarez, Ambassador Extraordinaire and Plenipotentiary Ambassador, the Embassy of the Kingdom of Spain, members of Council, I'm not too sure if they're here, but let me recognize you if you are here. Ms. Eugene Okper, Senior Vice President and Country Chair, Shell Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. David Campbell, President of BP Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Max Popowitz, Development Associate of Lightsource BP. Others, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and let me also recognize my colleagues at the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission. Distinguished local government representatives, the management and staff of all the organizations present here, and I recognize a very close friend of mine, Ms. Lizelle Foot-Lezama, a proud national of Trinidad and Tobago, who is no longer employed in Trinidad and Tobago, but doing great work in BP. So, Lizelle, we are very, very proud of you, that you are making your mark in the United Kingdom. And welcome again back home in Trinidad, especially in South Trinidad. I know that is where you're from. Ladies and gentlemen, today our planet is faced with many challenges that threaten life and living in the ways that we have grown so accustomed. Climate change, wars, natural disasters, pandemics, food and energy security, just to name a few. It is that time, and it's a unique time, that requires resolute and determined leadership, not only to keep the ship of state stable or steady, but to navigate these choppy waters and strong headwinds to continue the development agenda while seeking to reposition ourselves to become future-proof as more challenges lie ahead. In this regard, I am reminded of the exhortation of our country's first Prime Minister, Dr. Eric Williams, to the national community in a speech celebrating our country's independence, and I quote, "We are now the masters of our own destiny. with the power to either make or break our future, and that alone is reason to celebrate. We no longer can we blame others for our successes or our deficiencies. We can look in that proverbial mirror to determine the road ahead, or we can continue with blissful insouciance to ignore and diminish our history, end quote. And today, we have every reason to celebrate. As we turn the sword for this Brechin Castle solar site, one of two sites which, when completed, will revolutionize the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago. Such a transformation is necessary, not just in the energy sector, but across the board, especially when we take into consideration the growing threat of climate change and environmental degradation. These are not only matters of concern to small island states like Trinidad and Tobago, but have taken priority on the global stage as larger and smaller nations alike grapple with the impact of these phenomena on industries, communities, and lives. We in the public utility sector are fully aware that in light of these concerns, the efficient and sustainable use of our resources as we seek to provide utility services to all our country and to all our people are resilient and dependable. And as such, we have set out to implement positive changes in the various sectors within our remit. This thrust towards a more sustainable public utility sector is fully supported and endorsed by government. And it is with a sense of pride that I note that just about 3 weeks ago, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago successfully hosted the first ever water loss conference in the Caribbean. The theme of the conference was combating climate change through non-revenue water. And this milestone event was attended by over 300 participants around the world, which included water sector practitioners, regulators, policymakers, and representatives of local and foreign universities from 27 countries throughout the world. The conference had 50 speakers, panelists, and presenters. 10 Caribbean countries were represented, with government ministers heading the delegations from Bahamas, Barbados, and Nevis. And the focus of the conference was thrust by utilities within the region to mitigate the climate change on their water resources. As I mentioned before, climate change remains a major global concern. And small island states like Trinidad and Tobago are particularly vulnerable to its effects, which include more frequent and more hurricanes and tropical storms, harsher dry seasons, shorter but more intense rainy seasons, flash flooding, rising sea levels, coastal flooding, and increasing temperatures. And the hosting of this conference aptly demonstrates the government's leadership in tackling this major global issue. And today, the government is yet again demonstrating its astute leadership in treating with the major issue of global and climate change, which is in fact one of the primary contributors to what we are faced with and the challenges we are faced with. I am speaking about greenhouse gas emissions, which we are internationally obligated to lower by as much as 30% by 2030. And as you can imagine, power generation is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions globally, along with transportation and industry. Any intervention in these areas will go a long way towards reducing the cumulative greenhouse emissions of any country. It is therefore with the greatest of pride that I address you today as we chart new territory for this country's renewable energy future and mark the commencement of construction of the country's first grid-scale renewable energy project, the largest solar project in the Caribbean, being undertaken by the consortium BP, Shell, and Light Source BP. And this project, as we know, once completed, will place us in the enviable position of being the premier solar generation country in the Caribbean. It involves the construction of this 92.22 megawatt solar plant in the vicinity of this Brechin Castle and 20 megawatt solar plant in Orange Grove. The estimated energy expected to be delivered to the electricity grid from both plants is approximately 250 165 million kilowatts per hour per year. This will in turn reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 150,000 tons annually. Besides the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, the solar power plants will reduce Trinidad and Tobago's demand for natural gas in the power generation sector, thus allowing for the sale of this gas on the LNG and petrochemical markets, resulting in the generation of additional revenues and scarce foreign exchange earnings from increased natural gas sales from higher valued natural gas derivatives. This is not only the only initiative, that will reduce demand for our natural gas resources for energy generation. TNTEC is currently constructing a 220 kilovolt double circuit tower line from Union Estate substation to Gandhi Village substation, which is due to be commissioned next week. This will allow for the bulk power transfer from the TGU power station to be delivered directly to two of the Commission's main substations in the electric grid, the Gandhi Village substation in the south and Brechin Castle substation right here in central Trinidad. Apart from improving system reliability, with the completion of this second circuit, the increased transmission capacity from Union Estate substation will allow for dispatch of the full capacity of TGU power station of 720 megawatts. This increased generation, ladies and gentlemen, this increased generation capacity of 120 megawatts from TGU translates in many parts to an increase in generation capacity via the heat recovery steam generators, which utilizes waste heat from the gas turbines to generate an additional 70 megawatts of electricity, which will redound a significant gas savings of approximately $80 million TT annually. Ladies and gentlemen, as this project undoubtedly demonstrates, renewable energy will play an increasingly important role in the decarbonization of our energy systems going forward. And in this regard, the Ministry of Public Utilities and TNTEC have already started exploring the commercial feasibility for harnessing wind energy, and we will continue our collaboration with the Ministry of Energy. Finally, I wish to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the public servants who served on the cabinet-appointed committee to represent the interests of Trinidad and Tobago in this very difficult negotiation process. I know the challenges that you faced, but your love for your country ensured that we navigated the course successfully to this point. I am proud of your achievements and commitment to the course. Your response is indeed in keeping with yet another exhortation of our founding father, Dr. Eric Williams, and I quote, "Place always first the national interest and the national cause. The strength of the nation depends on the strength of its citizens." Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you kindly for your time and wish the shareholders and all the stakeholders in this groundbreaking initiative great success, and may God continue to bless our nation.
Thank you very much, Minister. And he spoke so much about collaboration and so many other things that are evolving in our country, Trinidad and Tobago, when it comes to utilities. And when it comes to energy, this man puts the energy behind the energy. Please put your hands together for the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, the Honorable Stuart Young.
Thank you, Hans. Good afternoon to Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, to Ms. Anya Isabel Dotzenrat, the Executive Vice President of Gas and Low Carbon Energy BP, to Mr. David Campbell, to Mr. Eugene Okper, Senior Vice President, Country Chair, Shell Trinidad and Tobago, and how could I forget my cabinet colleague, the Honorable Marvin Gonzalez. To you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and really the partners who have come together to make this project a reality here today. To those of you who are aware of this project, you would know that it is called, in our circles, Project Lara. And I woke up this morning, and what came up on one of my reels was Brian Lara, for those of you who don't know, scoring that record-breaking 400 runs in the mid-2000s. And I thought it apt to use Lara as the analogy for today, because those of you who know his history will know that when Brian Lara first came to cricket and to prominence, and the Prime Minister will be very aware of this, as a young batsman, he initially struggled. Despite all of the talent he had, he was held back by the selectors from starting to play cricket for the West Indies. So the choice of Lara was an apt name, in my view, for this project, because it is groundbreaking. Initially, we struggled to get it across the line, but now that we've done so, we've done it in record-breaking style. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who played an important role, and you know who you are, in making this project a reality here today, starting with the Prime Minister and the support that we got at the cabinet level. My colleague, Minister Marvin Gonzalez at the Ministry of Public Utilities, to all of the public servants at the Ministry of Energy, Energy Industries, those of you who are so passionate about this, thank God, and to the public servants at the Ministry of Public Utilities as well. And most importantly, to the collaboration that Trinidad and Tobago is seeing here today that deserves highlighting. To have our two largest investors in upstream gas production, both BP and Shell, two major global players, take the time, the effort, and the financial investment into this record-breaking solar project, Project Lara, is something that the people of Trinidad and Tobago need to take note of. It shows that they're invested in the well-being of Trinidad and Tobago's hydrocarbon economy as we go through the transition to where we need to go. Once again, Trinidad and Tobago is setting the pace and the standard, and we're doing exactly what Eugene talked about, showing our agility as well as our call to action and getting it done. Just to very briefly put the context of renewables into play for Trinidad and Tobago. This is directly going to lead to a reduction in our carbon footprint, as you heard previous speakers talk about. But what you would see as well is this project, as Trinidad and Tobago needs to understand, is also always going to be susceptible to what is going on globally. You heard Anya talk about the Russia-Ukraine war last year. That affected this project directly, as we saw the price of the materials, the shipping, the steel, the solar panels increase on us overnight. And that is something that we in Trinidad and Tobago face. We faced it dead on, and we negotiated our way to a successful project here today. I have immense pride as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago here today, standing to be part of this project. And I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me the opportunity as a citizen to participate in this record-breaking solar project. We will be utilizing more renewables in our grid as we go forward. What we intend to do, and the policy that will be driven by the Ministry of Energy as the ministry that is in charge of generating electricity, is to see how much reduction in gas we can get, both from the use of renewables, but also, I'm pleased to say that I hope in the not too distant future, we'll be able to announce to the country the upgrade of some of our plant and machinery to combined cycle turbines, which will also redound in a reduction of the use of natural gas, which can then go on into more revenue-producing commodities. We are also working very hard, and hopefully very soon would be able to announce our first green hydrogen project, which, as you know, will be based on an input of renewables at the start into the electrolyzer to then get green ammonia at the output. These are some of the things that we're doing in Trinidad and Tobago. But today is all about Project Lara. And my job is a simple one, to thank all of you who worked with us through difficulty at certain times, but to come here today to make this project a reality. Well done, Trinidad and Tobago. because once again, you've led the way and we're scoring records. Thank you very much for your attention. I look forward to in the coming not too distant future for us to be able to be announcing much more in our collaboration with BP, Shell, and the other stakeholders in the energy industry who have an important part and role to play in the continued development of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Continued development of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, the Honorable Stuart Young. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome to the podium our Honorable Prime Minister of our Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Please stand as he comes to the podium as we welcome Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley.
Thank you very much, Hans. I would like when the happy with us all the way from the UK to BP Trinidad, Mrs. Anya Tosunrat, who is holding the office of Executive Vice President, Gas and Low Carbon Energy, very significant in being here with us today on this project in this particular location. I'd also like to take the opportunity while in BP, both resident and transitory, to acknowledge Mr. Eugene Percy and Country Chair for Shell in Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Max Popkovich of Life. I just want to say if today was Panorama, it wouldn't go the way it went this year. It would be the other way around, right? But we'll have a word with the judges next year. Also, let me acknowledge other distinct, mainly a member from the utilities, particularly the staff, and also the Ministry of Finance. Do have, if still acknowledge, local Cuba Tabakita Regional Corporation and the Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation that contributed to the events. Just partners, those of you members of the media who will address the public as to the progress that we're making in this area. Let me reflect with you a meeting that we had, a Trinidad and Tobago delegation to BP years ago. Just as the leadership of BP. And the new leader of BP made it very clear to us that his initiative at BP would be to be a world leader in sustainable energy. We not got our groundings and understood our business very well. You've just taken sustainable energy. Then I went to COP26 meeting in Glasgow, and in that meeting where the world was gathered to respond to the climate change issue, the fashion was in full swing, and there was one conversation that was taking over the floor, that banks should not finance hydrocarbon exploration and extraction, and that is how we will shut down the use of hydrocarbons that were creating this deleterious greenhouse gas emissions. And I'm wondering, what is this all? There were people on the floor who were cheering that suggestion. And my thought was, what would happen because we do live hours of hydrocarbon exploration. These conversations are seen in many instances very effective. So we in Trinidad and Tobago participating in the world's economy, selling LNG and a lot of petrochemicals, we cannot escape the attention of the world, and we are reminded by very many, sometimes in very misinformed ways, that we are in fact a major emission, and therefore we have to change our ways of doing business, because the next thing that follows is that people who we do business with or markets in which we trade will take action against us or products. So we can't know what is being said or what direction the markets are going in. So we had to, and did in fact as a responsible country, sign on to the Paris Accord, and commitments are to, and because we are in a position where we sell so much in the international marketplace, we hardly know of us in the world market, standards and measures. So how did we respond? Two-pronged. The hydrocarbon that is available, as long as there is, we will not in it, just how to run our affairs. Aspects of the world's economy. Our country has seen change. Our country has known change. There was a time in this country where charcoal was our major energy source. And had it not been for the discovery of oil and the use of oil in powering our systems, our country might already have been a desert, because the use of charcoal in a serious way would have seen a serious for our energy, where our oil production is down to 50,000 barrels, which is about 20% of what it was at peak. If we were still relying on using that oil to generate electric power, we might just barely have been supplying our own local needs and would have had nothing to sell. And that would have been the question, what's happening to our revenues? But over time, we did make the shift from oil to gas. And we became one of the few countries in the world that relied on natural gas for its power generation in totality. But today, just over 25 years or more, or 30 years or more of that, we are in a different situation now where our peak consumption of natural gas, we're down from 4.1 BCF per day to about 2.6 or 2.7. And as we discussed at the level of the cabinet and with our partners in energy, we are a country that desperately needs every molecule of gas that we can get our hands on, not to burn in our country, but to sell in the international market. There's a great market for LNG, and there's an even better market for petrochemical products. And like we said with oil and gas, we want to be there selling petrochemicals and selling LNG as long as there's an international market for it. Problem is, we don't have all the gas we'd like to have. So the initiative is not only about complying with our requirements in the international effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also to minimize the amount of gas we burn at home and selling that gas in the international marketplace to earn foreign currency and to be a part of an economy that we now have that we can hardly replace overnight or at all. So when we embarked on this project, it came out of the approach of the government of Trinidad and Tobago to those who have had long time resources with us exploiting our resources, and who have the ability to do what we may not have to do without putting out the kinds of resources that we do not now have. So we talk to our partners at Shell, at BP, and we do call them partners, because the current government of Trinidad and Tobago has taken the position here in Trinidad and Tobago and in the boardrooms of these companies that those of us who live off what this country has as its natural resources, we are in fact partners in this business. And therefore, as long as there's respect and there's partnership, there's nothing that we cannot do. So those discussions took place in London a while ago, just as BP had taken this position. The department was created then, and the head of that department was due to visit us here in Trinidad and Tobago to advance this project, and then came COVID. And I think Dev has now left Shell, right? BP, sorry. He never made the trip, but we never lost the idea of getting it done. And I think Anya's replacement of Dev, I think we're better off now, aren't we? So the relationship between the government and Shell is there, and the project is still alive. I can tell you this is one of the most difficult projects that the cabinet has had to deal with, because we've had to work out arrangements to make it work. So at this juncture, I would like to thank all the technical staff and all those technical people who sat down, put the numbers together to make this project a reality. Because, you know, public servants usually have a fear of getting things wrong, and that makes it difficult to do new things because they rely on doing what they knew before. So to get them to do something and to work with something that they never worked with before is usually a little more difficult. So when you get the leadership in the public service to get it done, I think it's a signal occasion, and that's why I want to thank those public servants for being people of Trinidad and Tobago. But what then is the project? What is the scale of the project? What's the scope of this project? If you really want to get an understanding of the scale of this project, I want you to know that the power that is going to be generated from this project, if this project was in Tobago, 100% of electrical power consumption in Tobago. That is the scale of this project. Even though it's just about 10% of our national consumption. But see it as a project where we are extracting our natural resources and using it in a way that gives us an advantage. So in the very, very early days, we were extracting wood from the forest and burning coal and wood fire. And those of you young people who don't believe that, we used to have wood under the pot. And when you were better off, you used to have charcoal in lumps. And then there were those who had gas, and some had kerosene in those kerosene stove, you know, and when you run out of kerosene, you run by the neighbor to borrow their bottle. That's true. You know that, do you? See what I mean? You missed all the fun. You know what it is to have a pot of pilau and the pot and the pitcher all finished? You run by the neighbor and get the bottle and get the neighbor's bottle and put it on your two-burner stove, and that was good middle-class living, eh? And then, of course, we had electricity, and today we're going to extract this power from sunlight. The technologies have developed where we can now extract the energy of the sun, convert it to electricity, and put it in the national grid. Those are the pathways that we have followed. This is where we are. And we're doing it at a time when the whole world, with a great sense of urgency, is demanding that we do that if we are going to participate in the world's economy. Because if we don't show the world that we are making efforts to reduce our greenhouse, and that the hydrogen that we're going to use, or the power that we generated, is what we call green power, meaning that you are generating it but not increasing your carbon output. If we're not going to show the world that, what we are facing would be markets that will say to us, the products that you produce are not saleable in this market. That's what it is. But we want to remain in those markets, as I said earlier on, and therefore we have to adjust and to be able to carry the conversation as we've carried. When we were in last year, and the story was hydrocarbons should be deemed acceptable in today's world, we had to say contributing, because LNG is demand for power. The best that the world can do until better comes is LNG, and Trinidad and Tobago is a supplier of LNG. Strangely enough, Trinidad and Tobago took that position in Qatar. It was gone further to declare that was on to think that and it continues to change, and Trinidad and Tobago has to change to ensure. There was a time when we sold diesel around the region, but there came to a point when low sulfur diesel was the only diesel that was allowed in international trade. If we were in the market to sell diesel, initiative. And once this project is successful, as we expect it will be and must be, this will not be the only project of this kind. We as a country, with significantly reducing volumes of gas and, I dare say, oil, to increase our consumption of systems to make our mark in solar power in Trinidad and Tobago. And as the technology gets better, it will get more and more affordable. Now, I know that there are those who will point to the fact that the coming of this project would come at the end of a society which has been red and cheap. Does not mean that we are cast in cement. We have to understand has come, and the solution participate demands that we use the current technology, which is solar power, to allow us to be able to say and to confirm we about our carbon emission in Trinidad. That over time, as the technology increases, its efficiencies, and the markets become more open and more competitive, these things like batteries, technical input, all of these will not be novices in the area. We would have been participating a long time ago. Minister Young mentioned today about combined cycle in electricity. I distinctly recall decades ago when Professor Julian led Trinidad and Tobago from oil on to gas for power. The next phase that followed that was the use of combined cycles. And some of our systems were combined only because we do not want to burn all that gas for electricity. We want that gas to sell. And if we save 40 scuffs of gas, 40 million scuffs of gas, that is like a small gas field that we've discovered. So every time we reduce our consumption for power on that scale, is like if we found a small gas field somewhere onshore or offshore. So these are the things that we want to, and we are to be able to continue our role as handlers and managers of hydrocarbon business in the country, and to ensure we preserve hydrocarbon successes, Because if we fail on the hydrocarbon side, I guarantee you, we will fail in virtually every other areas of Trinidad and Tobago's economy, because we are so heavily dependent on the flow of success from the hydrocarbon sector into the other sectors, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's agriculture, and whether it is. So at the heart of our carbon in the 21st century, and the ministry and the technical people at TNTech, at Atlantic LNG, at NGC, these are the people who spend their time the government to the decision making of, and decisions on the marginal lands of central Trinidad, which at one time was second grade sugarcane land. These weren't the best lands for sugarcane, as you would see. They're not the most arable, but they're not flat, but they're gentle enough to have our slopes covered in solar panels. And it may turn out that rolling hills are better for solar than. I'm looking forward to welcoming Anya back here. Expansion of the amount of power produced. This project will produce 112 megawatts. We can double it. Once the unit cost is reasonable, there's an incentive to double it, meaning that much gas will not be utilized in power and will be available either as a petrochemical shipment or as an energy. And we will kill two birds with one stone there. We'll reduce our carbon emission and we'll earn foreign exchange simply by changing the product. A lot of sunshine, from smiles to ever. Right? So Trinidad and Tobago is making a statement today that we are joining the world's effort of reducing greenhouse gas emission. And we, as an economy, we are placing our future on the ability to extract solar power and drive our economy in selling products made from hydrocarbons with some element of green input. I hope that's very soon a project maybe not only on this, not on this full, not scale, but a scale that could significantly impact Tobago's use of power. Because Western Tobago, there are areas that we're looking at in Western Tobago where the rolling hillsides, which commonly only encourage bushfires from unused grasses, some of those hillsides can be used because the sunlight in those areas is about 90 or 95%, and they are perfect for putting in solar panels and generating power. And of course, it will save us what we want to save. And I also, very soon you will see the government going to the parliament and adjusting the regulations where we have to ensure that those persons in the private sector who invest in individual supplies of solar power at their facilities, be it at businesses or at homes, that the arrangements are made to encourage them to sell their surplus power into the grid. And what that will do is contribute to the reduction in generation at the TNTech power gen end, and see everybody in Trinidad and Tobago who is prepared to make that investment contributing to killing one of those two birds. One, reducing our carbon emission, and secondly, transferring our consumption from gas power to sun power. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a far-reaching project. I want to once again thank all those who worked with us. I must say I was pleasantly surprised that it was so easy to convince Shell and BP to partner with us here. Because as I say to these companies all the time, whatever is good for your shareholders must be good for the shareholders of Trinidad and Tobago, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And if you prosper in this country, then we should prosper too. And this is one of those instances where these major international hydrocarbon dealing companies have agreed to work with the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago on a cutting-edge initiative that is so valuable to us in more ways than one. So thank you for cooperating with us, and we look forward to growing it. This morning in our meeting, Anya asked what would be our next project. and I think I would say expansion here and elsewhere in Trinidad, a project in Tobago, but most importantly, encouraging the use of sustainable power at sites, at locations, away from these commercial scales where people can do it and benefit at the household level or at the level of a manufacturer somewhere in Trinidad or in Tobago. The sky is the limit, and we're on a journey that would take us very far, keeping us in hydrocarbon. And when we go to these conferences or whenever we go to speak for Trinidad and Tobago, we can speak without fear of contradiction that we are not a pariah, but we are a leader in this business. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for your cooperation and your support.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for the Low-Carbon Energy Initiative.
The winning numbers in the National Lottery online draws for Thursday, 13th April 2023 at 10:30 a.m. Playway, the number 7 Hug, Mega Ball called, Mega Ultra Ball called, along with the Golden Ball. Pick 2 numbers 16 and 9 in that order. Pick 4 numbers 3, 2, 2, and 6 in that order. At 1 p.m., Playway, the number 31 Parson Wife, Mega Extreme Ball called. Pick 2 numbers 13 and 7 in that order. Pick 4 numbers 4, 3, 9, and 9 in that order.
The Naparima Bowl Jazz Festival is on. Saturday, 15th April 2023, with 2 concerts in one starting at 6 p.m. in the Naparima Bowl Courtyard. Then we head over to the amphitheater for Fusion 4, the jazz experience, featuring the National Steel Symphony Orchestra and guests at 8:30 p.m. Tickets are available at islandetickets.com, as well as Naparima Bowl and Napa box offices at $200. Call 283-1284 for more information.
TTT News, delivering more news more often to more people. TTT News, reporting on the people, events, and issues that affect your life. TTT News, online and fully interactive at TTT Live Online. TTT News, first at 6:30 p.m. TTT News, committed, accurate, relevant.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola, Lego, Nerf, and remote control vehicles, kids learning desks, and educational toys. Ride-ons, bikes, drones, science toys, and board games and puzzles. And a wide range of baby items. We also have the best devices for school, like laptops, the Amazon Fire 7